Okay, folks, great to see. It does feel like a bit of a homecoming tonight. It's great to see a few folks that I haven't seen in a while. My name's Larry Watmore. I think most of you who know who I am. I'm the president of the Scarborough Community Renewal Organization. Thank you all for being here tonight. We've got a couple of three great speakers, two great topics tonight, and which actually have a bit of an intersection, which is also kind of nice. So let me get right to it. Our first speaker, our highlight speaker tonight is Barbara Dixon. So allow me to introduce Barbara, who will be speaking about her book, Bomb Girls, Trading Aprons for Ammo. Barb is an author, a speaker, and a local historian who has presented to many local organizations about this book, including to my own Rotary Club, a couple of years ago. So I have this book, and I can tell you it is a fascinating story. It chronicles a chapter of Scarborough's history and the wartime history of the Golden Mile that I knew nothing about. Barbara's writing passions are Canadian history in the 19th century, Ireland's Great Hunger, and of course the invaluable contributions made by Canadian men and women engaged in war work during the Second World War, which is about what Bomb Girls is all about. So Barbara, thanks for coming tonight, and I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you so much, Larry, for that introduction, and thank you, all of you eager Scarboroughs, for inviting me to be your highlight speaker this evening. And I know I don't have much time. Oh, perfect. I'm sharing my screen. So perfect. So can I just go and get my screen?
Yeah.
Okay, hold on. All right, so we're sharing Jeff's screen. Can I share mine?
Then Jeff will have to stop sharing his.
Okay, perfect. I threw a couple slides together just so you could kind of see about this amazing history of Scarborough. A part of Scarborough that not very many people know about. Just hold on here. There we go. Can everybody see that?
Yeah.
That's great. Okay, perfect. So I'm just going to give you just a really high level overview of the GECO plant that was located in Scarborough, Ontario, back during the Second World War. And the name of my book that came out in 2015, it was actually called Bomb Girls, Trading Aprons for Ammo. And I was just going to introduce you again at a very high level about this amazing piece of Canadian history that not very many people know about. So GECO, General Engineering Company Canada Limited, they were actually a mining company, and they were hired by the Canadian government during the Second World War to oversee the erection and the operations of a top secret munitions factory in Scarborough. And GECO actually became the largest munitions factory in Canadian history. Over the course of its operation, so for 4 years, from 1941 to 1945, this particular facility filled for the Allied forces over 250 million rounds of ammunition. It employed over 21,000 patriotic Canadians. It comprised of 172 buildings on 346 acres of prime Scarborough farmland. And if you kind of imagine in your mind where the Golden Mile is, at Victoria Park in Eglinton, GECO actually was just east of there. So Birchmount and Eglinton all the way over to Borden and Eglinton, and then south from Eglinton almost all the way down to St. Clair. So it gives you just an idea of the footprint in Scarborough that this particular facility had. After the war, and I can't find any reason why they did this, the Canadian government, but they actually ordered everything destroyed. So all documentation, all specs, all employee records, everything destroyed. So I can only tell you about this amazing piece of history because the president and vice president of GECO, they were a private mining company. They actually kept their personal records. And upon the death of the president, Bob Hamilton, his widow donated all his records to the Ontario Archives. And so that's where I can tell you this amazing story tonight. So really, in a nutshell, January 1941, we had already been at war with Germany for about 15 months. At the end of January, King George VI expropriated farmland from Scarborough farmers. February 6th was groundbreaking. no groundbreaking, really. Just a couple men dug the shovels in. By March, men were working around the clock. By June, there were 2,700 men building this facility. By July, the first fuse filling workshop opened, and by September, this plant was 95% up and running. And when you think about that, that's 172 buildings on 346 acres of land, up and running from scratch in 7 months. These buildings were built completely from wood. You won't find any steel. You wouldn't find any steel in these buildings. The buildings had a projection of 5 years of useful life, and 80 years later, I'm proud to tell you that there are still 20 original buildings still standing today. And that tells you about, I believe, about the workmanship of these proud Canadian men who built this facility, that they still have 20 buildings standing today. Fuse filling, obviously, any munitions operations were very serious work, and every fuse that was filled at Scarborough actually left the facility etched with a big C, small c, big S, small c for Scarborough / big C for Canada. And it became a mark of quality in all theaters of war during the Second World War. Canada had, or this particular plant, they had a very unique quality standard. Almost 99% of everything that was filled at Scarborough was passed into production and went overseas. And that's rare in arsenal practice even today. Up to 100 operations were needed to fill one fuse. And they actually filled detonators the size, if you can imagine, your baby pinky nail. And these detonators, they were stamped and they were pressed down to a particular density. And what would happen if you accidentally pressed too hard? It would explode. What happened if you dropped one? It would detonate. So it was highly, highly dangerous work. And yet these 21,000 people over 4 years at Scarborough risked their lives every day to fill munitions and to help end the Second World War. I wish I could tell you lots more, but that will have to wait till December. I will show you the tunnels under Scarborough. So in addition to these 170 buildings that sat on top of the ground, there was actually a 4-kilometer tunnel system that ran under the plant. Urban legend that said that's where the women worked, that they were buried underground. That's not true. Nobody worked beneath the ground. Everybody was on top side, but they buried all the infrastructure needed to run this plant underground, so that in case of explosion, God forbid that a whole workshop or whole building topside would explode and there'd be just a catastrophic loss of life. Everything would keep running because all of the electrical needs, plumbing, sewer, what else? Steam, heating, air conditioning, everything was buried so that all the surrounding workshops could still continue to fill munitions. And that was a sad reality of war. This picture, these tunnels don't exist anymore for underneath this particular building, but there are tunnels still there today, if you can believe it, over 80 years later. This picture, we actually were invited to go down into the tunnels before one of the buildings was demolished, and very dark down there. The tunnels felt like they went on forever, and we flipped our headlamps on and we startled a little person, or not person, but a little being, a resident that still lived at Jico, and this mother cat had just given birth to a litter of kittens, and her kittens are just off to the right there in a small vestibule. And we startled her by our noise and bright lights, and off she goes scurrying. But there's a phenomenal piece of Canadian history, and like I did not know about this plant, and I certainly didn't know about the 4-kilometer tunnel system that ran under Scarborough so long ago. In addition to all the things in terms of the incredibleness of this plant, unfortunately, nothing today has heritage status. So the owners of these small buildings that were all sold off after the Second World War, they can tear these buildings down. There's nothing to stop that demolition. And it's something that I think that we really need to change. I think we really need to make this a heritage section of the city, get a plaque, designate one particular building. I would love to see a museum started for the future generations of students to come in. But right now, nothing like that exists. However, we do have a lovely mural, and the mural sits on St. Clair Avenue East, just east of Warden Avenue. If you've ever been to Warden Station, I'm sure you've seen the breezeway where the subway cars go overhead. And this is a beautiful mural that's been dedicated to Scarborough's bomb girls. And I think the muralists did a fantastic job. In addition to that, with the huge revitalization project that's happening in South Scarborough, slowly creeping north, and especially with the Eglinton LRT coming through and the revitalization of the Golden Mile area, there are new subdivisions being built, and a subdivision was built and finished just a couple of years ago. And they have actually named two of the new streets on behalf of GECO, and one is called Cleanside Drive and the other is Fusilier Road. And I think that that's just wonderful because that will be there for a long, long time to come. So I'm going to end this evening. Like I said, it's just a highlight, but I brought along a movie trailer. Bell Media contacted me and we put together a beautiful 25-minute documentary about these amazing bomb girls. And I've got the trailer here tonight, and I just have to make sure that I have my speaker connected to you so that you can hear these amazing 4 bomb girls. And like I said, it's just a trailer, but I hope you get a real sense of what these ladies were like so long ago. And this is not a real somber, poignant, typical war movie, a war documentary. This is really lighthearted because these women were young, they were full of life, and they were really excited and just eager to do their part despite the somberness of war. And I think that the director really captured this in this movie trailer. So enjoy. Hopefully I can get it to go.
I just thought of it as a job, really. I didn't think of the danger.
If you didn't know your job, then you would definitely wouldn't be hired there.
I wasn't aware of danger.
No, I didn't even realize with what they were doing and how dangerous it would be.
I just wanted the money.
Okay, hold on. I don't know why it's not running. So just let me try this again.
I just thought of it
Not
as a
ready.
job, really. I didn't think of the danger.
If you didn't know your job, then you would
Okay,
definitely.
I'm so sorry. I want you to see this.
I
There you
just thought of it
go.
as a job, really. I didn't think of the danger.
If you didn't know your job, then you would definitely wouldn't be hired there.
I wasn't aware of danger.
No, I didn't even realize with what they were doing and how dangerous it would be.
I just wanted the money.
And that's the trailer to the Bomb Girls documentary. I think Bell Media did just a fantastic job handling these beautiful bomb girls and what they represented, this piece of Canadian history. So thank you very much. My book is still available at Indigo Chapters, Dundurn Press, Amazon, or even through me if you wanted an autographed copy. So I think that's just phenomenal that the book is still doing well 6 years after it was published. And that's really quick, really high level, the story of Bomb Girls. So thank you so much. And I will stop sharing. There.
Let me try that again. Thank you, Barb. And thank you for documenting such a rich but little known chapter in Scarborough's history. Now, you may have heard Barb mention December 2nd in her talk. Barb will be the spotlight speaker at our Scarborough on December 2nd. So tonight was just a bit of a teaser for a more fulsome presentation, which will take place then. So if you can mark your calendar for that date. Now, the wartime factories that Barb just spoke about spawned a prolonged period of post-war industrial prosperity in that part of Scarborough, which gave rise to the name the Golden Mile. With large industrial plants from pharmacy to Birchmount and major shopping centers on both sides of Eglinton between Victoria Park and Pharmacy, The 1950s, 60s, and 70s truly were a golden era of prosperity along the Golden Mile. But we've lost much of that luster in recent decades. So now comes an opportunity to renew the Golden Mile for a new age, which brings me to tonight's keynote speakers. Mitchell Cohen, President and CEO of the Daniels Corporation, and Heela Omarkhail, Vice President of Social Impact. Mitch and Heela will be speaking about the Golden Mile Community Innovation District, a new approach to development, as Daniels partners with Choice Properties in the redevelopment of phase 1 of the 20-acre Choice property site in the Golden Mile. But let me introduce Mitch and Heela first. Mitch has managed the day-to-day operations at Daniels since 1984. Under Mitch's direction, Daniels has developed a strong brand with residential offerings for people at all stages of life, while supporting many charities and nonprofit organizations. Mitch has a master's degree in social psychology from the London School of Economics and a Bachelor of Science in Psychology from McGill. In 2010, Mitch was honored with an Award of Merit from the St. George's Society and is a recipient of the Queen Elizabeth II Diamond Jubilee Medal. In 2013, Mitch received an honorary doctorate from Ryerson University, and in 2019, Mitch was appointed to the Order of Canada. Heela is responsible for corporate mandates and strategic initiatives that look beyond the bricks and mortar to ensure that the social, cultural, and economic infrastructures of communities that are built by Daniels are as strong as the new buildings. Since 2009, Heela has been working on the revitalization of Regent Park's 69-acre social housing neighborhood and its transformation into a mixed income and mixed use community. Heela has spoken on a number of panels and delivered presentations about leveraging real estate investment as a platform for social change through mixed use developments and philanthropy. Heela's passion for social change and community impact comes from her lived experience as a child of new immigrants to Canada and growing up in a vibrant social housing community in North York. Heela has a Bachelor's Commerce of Arts, an honors Bachelor of Arts degree, specializing in history and political science from the University of Toronto. Welcome, Heela and Mitch. I'll turn it over to you. And before doing so, just a reminder to everyone that you're welcome to please put your questions into the chat box, as we will have time for Q&A after Mitch and Heela finish their talk. And with that, Heela, Mitch, over to you.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Larry. I'm just going to tee up our presentation really quickly, and then we'll dive right in. There we go.
Fantastic. Larry, thank you so much. That was a very generous and lovely introduction of both of us. I really appreciate that. I'm sure Heela does as well. Really, really nice to be here. Thank you for this invitation, Larry, and to all of you, thank you for welcoming us to give a presentation about what we're doing in Scarborough. I mean, we're just at the very beginning of a journey in terms of the work on Golden Mile. And we've been spending probably the last, I think, Heela, 18 months or so, meeting people, getting to know people in the neighborhood, really trying to understand the issues and challenges within Scarborough, and really enjoying the people we're meeting and the energy and enthusiasm that so many people have about the future of Scarborough. And I think for us, that's what's very exciting. We've been working very diligently, long and hard in Regent Park over the last 15 years. And in that period of time, we've learned a lot about community development, about building relationships with community. And it just seemed that, there's opportunities for us as a company to take what we've learned about building community capital, about employment opportunities and building capacity in a community, that we could take a lot of what we've learned over the course of the 15 years into other communities. So we had an opportunity. Sorry, can you hear me okay? Got everything okay? Okay. Over the last couple of years, Heela and I and other members of our team have been thinking about, is there an opportunity in Scarborough that we could, really sink our teeth into? And we looked at a couple of opportunities, and, up until very recently, none of them really gave us the kind of scope, the ability to really make an impact, the ability to dig in and become part of a community for the long term, not just to build a building and, say, okay, we built a building and we're gone, but rather to think about and build partnerships with people in the Scarborough community and be there for the long term. So that was what we were looking for. And, unbelievably, and through a great series of happenstance, we did come to this opportunity in Golden Mile. We had been building a relationship with people from Choice Properties. We're currently under construction with Choice Properties on a rental building and a condominium building in Brampton. And it was in the course of that we were able to bring Galen Weston and the entire team from Choice to Regent Park to talk about what we were doing, to talk about the process of building community, the process of building relationships over the long term. And it was really from those conversations that Galen said to us, come to Golden Mile, come to Scarborough, help us think about how we might go forward and develop this community in a way that is different, because we think of ourselves as we are a developer. Obviously, we build bricks and mortar. But I think the one thing we also do is think well beyond the bricks and mortar. We think about how to build community. So Mr. Weston and the team from Choice Properties understood that, and they opened the door from us to come into Golden Mile. And that allowed us to get in, to get on the ground, to begin to meet people from the neighborhood. And at this point, I'll turn it over to Heela, because it was those discussions that really led to what Larry referenced a few minutes ago, Community Innovation District. What is that? Well, for us, it's just a different approach. It's a different way to think about building community. It's not about technical innovation, but it's about how a developer and community agencies, community residents, community institutions like the universities and community college, how everyone can work together, how we can innovate around inclusive development, how we can innovate around economic development, and really looking to the future and using Golden Mile as a platform, to bring economic strength back to Scarborough. I mean, just hearing about the factories and the economic strength that Scarborough had, is really for us saying, we can play a role in bringing back economic vitality. Scarborough has tremendous cultural vitality, tremendous diversity, and so many strengths. This is an opportunity to begin to really rebuild Scarborough as an economic engine. So Heela, I'll turn it over to you to talk a little bit more about what we mean when we say Community Innovation District.
Great. Thank you so much, Mitchell, and wonderful to be here this evening. Really looking forward to a dialogue as we get through this presentation. I would say Mitchell and I are much better at discussions than presenting. Usually when we do these types of presentations, we host them in one of our presentation centers around a big model where we can be in each other's company. So hopefully we'll all get that opportunity in Scarborough as well as things continue to improve with the pandemic. But maybe I'll just take us very high level in terms of the Golden Mile plan between Choice and Daniels, and then really focus in on the Community Innovation District. But this area just on the screen highlighted in red represents the almost 20 acres of the Choice property site right at Victoria Park and Eglinton. And this might be, as I switch slides here, a familiar site to some. Oh, we'll go back. There we go. the sort of classic Golden Mile Plaza. And the opportunity is really to redevelop these 20 acres into a mixed use, mixed income, complete community. As we've spent the last 18 months speaking with folks like Larry and Dave Hardy and Jillian Mason, really learning about Scarborough and the importance of approaching the development as a complete community, which is very much in line with our philosophy at Daniels. And as we look at the development, we envision sort of multiple phases. Phase 1 is the focus of the current Choice Daniels partnership, which you'll see right in the corner at Victoria Park in Eglinton, just north of the new Eglinton LRT station. And that'll be comprised of 2 condominium towers along the west. So if you can follow my mouse, just there. And then a purpose-built rental building on the east side here, both with retail as well as office uses. And that's really part of the core of the Community Innovation District. As well as a really great sort of pedestrian muse garden area, which I'll get a little bit more into. And as we think about sort of how do we build a complete community, housing is one component, but we really look at social infrastructure. So what are both the uses and the programs that are going to build a vibrant, resilient, and inclusive community? And what's incredible is Scarborough already has a wealth of groups doing some amazing work on the existing Choice Properties site right now. There's the Victoria Park Hub, which is operated by Working Women Community Center. Wood Green Community Services has an employment center on the site. Toronto Employment and Social Services, TESS, has a office as well. And so that really, planted the seed for us as we were having conversations with those groups about how do we take that forward into a broader approach, a overall, call it district approach, and not necessarily focus, as Mitchell said, on the tech innovation, but innovation in the community development sense. What does the future of social infrastructure and community development look like? And to us, that looks like embedding a range of community services, institutions, impact retail into the plan to go hand in hand with the residential. And so what the Community Innovation District will comprise of, at least in the first phase, will be both a physical footprint as well as collaborations between the University of Toronto Scarborough and Centennial College. And the concept that they are sort of coining is called communiversity. So actually bringing the university into community to make it much more accessible and provide, things like post-secondary access, foster co-learning opportunities with the community as well as with their students, develop research programs and learning programs, and really foster a sense of inclusion as they provide different pathways and training to local residents. And that will dovetail really nicely with having Toronto Employment and Social Services actually come back into the neighborhood in phase 1, and as well as having a range of community uses. So looking for opportunities to keep the Victoria Park Hub and Wood Green Community Services engaged, recognizing that this district approach really lends itself well to an amazing range of partnerships and collaborations to make sure that both the existing community as well as this new community, the overall Greater Golden Mile that's going to have up to 40,000 residents, is very well supported, and that it's not a bedroom community, but there are programs and services and activities for people to meet and learn and grow together. The other aspect I want to touch on that's maybe a bit untraditional because it's not an institution or a service provider is the first tenant that we've already signed up in phase 1 is the Bank of Montreal. BMO has committed to creating a flagship location within this area of the Golden Mile, and really looking at it from the lens of what they're calling the future of banking. So how does banking more directly and deeply engage with community? Are there financial literacy classes? Are there small business entrepreneurship programs? And what we have the ability to do is, take part of our retail and say, you know what, we're going to make this available through a program we call Daniel's Community Impact Commercial to new entrepreneurs, to new businesses from the local community. And so, the prospect, we're, as Mitchell said, very early on, about 18 months in, but this concept is very much gaining traction, and we're really feeling encouraged as we have more conversations with different groups about how all of this is really going to have an incredible synergy that will result in things like training programs and a really robust workforce development strategy, social procurement, so opportunities for caterers and photographers and new construction companies to actually be developed and nurtured and grow in this neighborhood. And that's something that the United Way is working on as well. I'm not sure if folks are familiar with the United Way GTA's ILEO, Inclusive Local Economic Opportunities initiative, but they've actually a group of first corporate leaders and now a multi-sectoral table, including community agencies, have come together and looked at a neighborhood model for inclusive economic growth. That includes things like a social procurement strategy, a construction joint venture, a corporate charter. And they have selected, just based on all of the development that will be happening in the Golden Mile over the next number of years and decades, they have chosen this neighborhood to pilot most of those initiatives. And so that will really enhance the work we're doing through the Community Innovation District. Mitchell, before I get to our sort of garden area and the vision for that, anything you wanted to highlight or touch on?
Yeah, thank you, Heela. I just want to mention that, we have a very good idea what we want to do and will do in partnership with the local community groups that Heela mentioned in phase 1. But as we begin to look at phase 2, we're looking to expand the opportunities in terms of looking for other partners. Heela mentioned we're partnering, for example, with Centennial College and U of T. Well, in phase 2, we're looking to, with them, build a
if you're doing mutual aid yourself, or if you know of someone, please.
There we go.
There we go. I don't know what that was. In phase 2, we're looking with Centennial College and U of T to build a vertical farm on top of the new grocery store. And as part of that, we want to look to other opportunities of people within Scarborough, businesses within Scarborough that are food service related, manufacturing, small lot manufacturing around food, and the creation of new products. And we want to create opportunities for that kind of business to be incubated, to be grown, using food and food kind of manufacturing. And urban agriculture as kind of a central organizing element. So, part of what we hope to do tonight and what we're doing is we're meeting you and meeting more people in Scarborough. Because as we go down this road, there may be, certain businesses or people that all of you know, or that you could point us to, that you could introduce us to, who might be interested in incubating a business within one of our next buildings that are coming up in phase 2 or 3 or 4. Because we really want to look at business development, entrepreneurship, and really creating opportunities to build this economic engine. And our site hopefully will be a demonstration of these. So we will be talking to the other developers, and through the United Way, we'll be talking to the other developers as well in terms of what else can be done to build economic strength and to use this opportunity, an enormous opportunity where billions of dollars is going to be invested in this Golden Mile, greater Golden Mile community. How do we leverage that investment? Heela mentioned, how do we leverage it in social procurement? How do we leverage it to create impact for local residents and local businesses? And that's an open dialogue, and that's for us to begin to explore with some of you who might have ideas. We want all ideas to come to the table for us to be able to talk and think and partner and look for ways to build value within this community that will then spread across the balance of Golden Mile and beyond. So Heela, that's the only thing I wanted to add at the moment.
So as we sort of go forward, that right here is the sort of, a very early rendered view of, call it the gateway to the Golden Mile, Victoria Park in Eglinton, that corner. And this area where my mouse is leads us to an area between the two buildings that will be a sort of all-season pedestrian muse. There will be sort of retail along the base of both of the buildings. You can sort of see the indication of offices that'll be the new homes of the UTSC and Centennial's Communiversity, the TESS office, hopefully a range of community organizations and services, and then a very sort of intentionally landscaped area that will allow for things like pop-up performances, food markets, financial literacy workshops happening outside on digital screens with the bank. And that's something that our Daniels team takes quite seriously. So not only how do we build these spaces, but how do we then invest long-term in the programming and in the partnerships with the Community Innovation District collaborators to really enhance the sense of place and belonging within these spaces. And typically we do that, we've really pioneered this approach probably over a decade ago with our TIFF Bell Lightbox, and then took it on the road to Regent Park, and most recently to our waterfront community, City of the Arts. But really embedding arts and culture into the DNA of a community as an organizing element to bring people together. Also gathering people over food and urban agriculture. A sort of universal unifier, regardless of age and cultural background and socioeconomic background and language. And we've also found that sports and physical activity do the same thing. So looking for avenues where we can do that. Obviously, not all of that will happen within the yard here, or that pedestrian muse, but leveraging community assets like the Meadowway that's being developed just north of this site. And, partnering with organizations that do arts and cultural work, that do food security work in the neighborhood, and identifying opportunities for them to collaborate within the Community Innovation District. And sort of I guess maybe we'll stop there for now and really turn this more into a discussion with any questions, any ideas of who else we should be contacting or having conversations with. And just to reiterate, we are early on in this journey, and we're really hoping to ramp up our community engagement efforts once we can be back on the ground in the community, because that's very much part of our Daniel's approach, is to be sort of boots on the ground in the neighborhood, meeting with people, speaking with people, hearing about their hopes and dreams and challenges, and looking at ways that the development may respond to that.
Heela, Jillian has asked a question in the chat space about how we've worked with local businesses in Regent Park. And, Jillian, unfortunately in Regent Park, there weren't a lot of existing businesses, very, very different in Golden Mile. So I think we really are at the first stages of understanding how we're going to work with those local businesses. In Regent Park, there was nothing. There was no bank, there was no grocery store, there was not even a small corner store really within the footprint of Regent Park. So what we're doing here, and what right now already, we've been meeting the business people within the Golden Mile, within the 20 acres. But there's many others that we want to meet and want to understand what their goals are. Do they want to remain? Are they right-sized right now in terms of their business or the potential growth of their business? I mean, these are avenues that are very important. Support the local existing businesses, and then also nurture new entrepreneurs who have ideas as to what they might want to do and how they might want to build business, and then find physical bricks and mortar spaces for them within our development or some of the others that are coming along the line. So appreciate your question, Jillian. We're at the beginning of that. We want to meet local business people, understand their goals, and then find ways to work with them to support them as opposed to displace them. So I appreciate that often, into these new developments come the big national chains or international, companies. We'd like to find that local coffee operator who is just starting up and has the best coffee in Scarborough, or the, samosa, or the baker. So those are the kind of people we look forward to meeting. We're really on day one of this journey. And partly, as I said earlier, being here tonight is about meeting more people in the community, making more contacts so that you can be in touch with us with ideas and with introductions. This is just the beginning. We have a long way to go. This is a many, multi-year, multi-phase project. Community development is a long and slow and intentional process. It doesn't happen overnight.
Thanks, Mitch. I see you've already responded in the chat box to John Stapleton's question. And just to provide some more context for that, John is one of our board members at SCRO and is our social policy specialist. And you're well aware of the fact that there are some disadvantaged communities near the Golden Mile. So in fact, even though this is a broader social policy question, there are it applies very much in that community, because there are some disadvantaged communities at or near the Golden Mile. So hopefully we will get a chance to talk further about how we could try and make some changes in that area. And also question, if you could talk at all about the impact on jobs for Scarborough residents that you foresee, I guess, during construction and also thereafter.
Of course. Thank you for that question. It's a great one. We see, what we're calling a comprehensive workforce development plan with many different sort of employment areas, training and career pathways, ranging from everything from within the retail. So how do we encourage or even, how do we make sure to require from new tenants that they hire a percentage of their team locally? And we did this in Regent Park 15 years ago and continue to do that. For example, when the RBC, Royal Bank of Canada, was selected in Regent Park, within days of signing their lease, 3 years before their branch even opened, they held a job fair, hired local residents from within Regent Park, placed them in branches across downtown, and 3 years later, when the bank branch in Regent Park opened, actually moved those team members to the new branch in the community right next door to where they lived. Similarly, when we brought in Freshco by Sobeys, something like 80 out of 88 employees were hired from the local community. I think Tim Hortons, Mitchell, was something like 32 out of 33 employees, including the assistant manager, was from the neighborhood. And we help facilitate these partnerships with the tenants, with Toronto Employment and Social Services, with community organizations to do the interview preps, the resume support, the interview sort of speed interviews, and really get folks ready for these opportunities. We've also created a range of employment pathways, as we call them. So pre-apprenticeship programs within the construction trades. And similar to the construction, to the commercial tenants, actually having it within the contracts with both our construction contractors and our consultants to hire from the community. And then creating a pre-apprenticeship program so young people from the neighborhood actually have the training, the skills, and the experience to fill those positions as they become available. So we would bring that program, which we call CRAFT, creating real apprenticeships for Toronto, to the Golden Mile. We've created a program for internationally educated professionals, and we know there are quite a few of those folks in Scarborough, to engage in continuing studies to actually get their credentials assessed in Canada, and then be able to take courses to get their equivalency or their licenses to practice here. And then, if they're engineers, connecting them with some of our consulting engineers. And then another really important avenue we found, and we've said the words a few times tonight, is social procurement. How do we engage artists and artisans, photographers, craftspeople, caterers, in a wide range of contracts in the neighborhood, where we actually, look at our budgets that are being spent in the development and say, how do we spend these intentionally within the community? So that's just a little flavor of what to expect in terms of creating jobs for Golden Mile and Scarborough residents.
And just to add to that, Mimi has put into the chat box a plug, watch for the United Way Greater Toronto to launch a community benefits framework, possibly in July. This is something I know that that Mimi and others have been working on in the Golden Mile. So that would be great for construction jobs potentially as well. There's a couple of comments about BIAs and whether it is it possible to set up a BIA in the Golden Mile as part of this redevelopment. And I know that just and to provide some additional context, I mean, BIAs have worked really well in the inner city, Main Street retail kind of environments. And it's been harder to make them work well at a place like Scarborough. And we've also, SCRO has been in conversation with the City of Toronto Economic Development Department, because we need to try and brainstorm a way to try and make the BIA model, perhaps in a revised form, work in a suburban context. And this is something that you may experience as you roll out phase 1 of the Golden Mile. And I don't know if you may not have faced this at Regent Park, but do you have any thoughts about how the BIA model could be applied in a redevelopment of the Golden Mile in a way that creates that commercial cohesion?
We don't have the answer to that, but we'd sure like to explore it with you. We've had a lot of discussions with the Cabbagetown BIA adjacent to Regent Park. We're right now deep in conversations with the Waterfront BIA because we have a building that we just built on the waterfront. So one of the challenges in BIAs everywhere is in a situation like has existed in Golden Mile, there's one great big behemoth of retail space, and that's the big grocery store. And then a number of very small others. Typically, the big owner of that big store doesn't want to be part of the BIA because the cost sort of onus is for the most part on that store or on that owner. I mean, like you just said, Larry, in places where there are small retailers and it's real neighborhood retailers, that's where it works really well. I think there's a new formula that needs to be created that has a group like Choice or the owners of the grocery store be able to see that there's a benefit in being part of the BIA as opposed to push it away, actually welcome it. And we'd love to talk more with you because, as you look throughout the Golden Mile, there's some big retailers, obviously, up and down that street. They're all going to be redeveloping their sites in the next little while. And I think we could create a new way to do this where the weighting of, GFA, the square footage that you have might be changed a little bit in terms of the contribution to BIA. So we're very open to hearing any ideas you've had or any tests that you might have done about how to create an alternative approach to BIA. We'd love to have that discussion with you.
We're in the early stages on this. It's on our radar. It's on the radar of
Sure.
the Scarborough Business Association. If the answer were easy, we would have found it by now. But it's something that I think is really essential, and so I expect we will have further discussions.
We'd love to. There has to be a different way to create the balance between the big ones and the smaller, mom and pop operations that, can afford a little bit towards BIA, but want to be part of a bigger whole. And I think have the advantage of being part of a cohesive network of commercial operators. So we'd love to have that. I see a note from Devin Scott, SPO, and the idea of a performance venue. So where's Devin?
And the SPO is the Scarborough Philharmonic Orchestra. Yes, we do have one.
Yes, no, I know, but you're saying that it plays most often in the Golden Mile.
Yes.
Where?
We perform currently. Sorry, my camera's a little funky tonight.
No worry, I see where you are. Thanks.
We typically, this is the Scarborough Philharmonic Orchestra. And at this time, our main performance space is the Salvation Army Scarborough Citadel, which has wonderful acoustics for a music group, but doesn't really have the capabilities to add theatrical capabilities like lighting or interesting projections or, these type of show effects. So I know this has always been a challenge in Scarborough. There's so many wonderful artists here. This is something we've discovered during the pandemic is there's a lot of great artists and talent here that has a hard time having a place to, show off or perform or do what they do as artists because we've got Toronto right next door. So some sort of idea I know has always been discussed. And again, I'm just putting in my 2 cents worth because this is a building opportunity to maybe create a Scarborough entertainment district, even if it's small and can grow, because that can also attract people to other local businesses and support a community. So thank you very much for allowing me to share. Love the presentation tonight. Thank you.
Well, Devin, just we don't want to leave that totally. I think it is worth further conversation. As we said, both Heela and I, we're learning more and more about the community and about the assets that already exist in the community and the assets that might be missing. And if, it becomes very clear that a cultural center or a performance center is something that is, a very obvious missing element to build community, then that's something we should all be thinking about. I mean, we could begin to think about in phase 3 of our development at the corner of Pharmacy and Eglinton, a cultural component. We've done this a lot. We've built a lot of cultural spaces in our careers, from TIFF Bell Lightbox, where I'm sure you've all seen a movie at Bell Lightbox, but also to the 60,000 square foot cultural center that we built in Regent Park called Daniel's Spectrum. Is there a demand from other organizations in addition to SPO, performing arts organizations, dance organizations, other kind of musical groups? If there is, we want to begin to learn about all of them and find out whether or not there's a real critical mass of organizations that say, we need a performance opportunity space or a cultural center, that is flexible, for dance, for theater, for poetry, for all kinds of things. And again, we're at the beginning. I see someone is here from the Scarborough Arts program. So again, we're learning and we're listening, and that's what part of this is all about, is to listen.
And Mitchell, I'll just add that Scarborough actually has 2 orchestras here. So I'll look forward to any opportunity to talk more about our neck of the woods. Scarborough Arts is an excellent group. We've made a wonderful connection. We've met many new artists during the pandemic. So again, any chance to share more information with you, I'm open. Thank you very much.
Well, that's terrific. I mean, Larry, just as a way to follow up on some of these things, I see that John did, give us his email address, and John, we're happy to follow up and just talk a little bit more, about, the challenges when, someone in community housing who's on rent geared to income gets a job and then their benefits go down. I mean, that's a real push-pull that is a challenge for many people, and love to, hear your ideas about how to change that system with the pilot program. But you've given us your email address. We can follow up with that. Larry, maybe if you are able to circulate Heela and my email address to everybody, then if someone wants to reach out with a specific comment or feedback or to engage in a further conversation, then we'd be able to do that very easily. If that makes sense, Larry, whatever you think is the best way to, build these channels.
And I'm going to put mine in the chat so folks can reach out.
Oh, that makes it easy.
And just going back very quickly to the arts and cultural note, we've had conversations with a few, I'm sure there are many more, but including Derek Spooner from Scarborough Arts, Randell Adage from Rise Edutainment. So we are meeting the arts folks in Scarborough. But as Mitchell said, great if we're able to identify a critical mass and see if some of the needs are complementary and how we bring that together. Great.
Lots of conversation about supporting the very vibrant arts community in Scarborough. So let's see if we can establish that as a priority as we go forward on this. And for those of you, Mitch mentioned the Daniel Spectrum in Spectrum. Is that what it's called?
Yep.
Yeah, the Spectrum in Regent Park. A very cool place, by the way. I've been there a number of times for meetings with community organizations that I'm part of, and perhaps that's a template that could be replicated, perhaps in a somewhat different form, in the Golden Mile as well. So I think for those of you who aren't familiar with the Daniels Spectrum in Regent Park, it's well worth checking out. There's a question from Jillian, so I'm going to read it and then I'm going to amplify it because I think it's a really important one. To what extent, with your experience in community building, are you able to influence the other private developers to seek partnerships in community as well? Do you have a sense that others will follow your lead? And as you know, Mitch, we sort of came to know each other through the Golden Mile secondary plan, and when it became apparent through SCRO's advocacy that there was vision alignment regarding how the Golden Mile should be developed as more of a complete community. And we know that there's going to be other avenues in play in Scarborough over the next 20, 30 years. And in fact, SCRO has been asked by the City of Toronto, which is now embarking on an official plan review over the next 12 months, to sit on the Community Leaders Circle together with a number of other organizations to help drive the community consultation piece of this process. And we know as that happens, that there's going to be a lot of discussion about renewal along avenues where, which are public transit hubs. So we're talking about the Eglinton East LRT, which of course is in play at the moment, and which could be in further play if we're successful in getting funding for an extension of the Eglinton East LRT east of Kennedy Station, which there seems to be some significant political interest in supporting. We know at some point there's going to be a significant political and financial movement to extend the higher order public transit along Shepherd Avenue, whether it's in the form of an LRT or a subway, and that will create pressure for development intensification along Shepherd Avenue. It could well happen along the Scarborough subway line. So we know there are nodes of Scarborough that are going to be in play in terms of development opportunities. Parts of Scarborough are going to shed their skin. And we really need to do this well, because we don't want to be just a bedroom community the same way that Scarborough was developed back at inception. This is the opportunity to do it right through this complete community approach. But we know, I want to be, the development industry has a job to do, obviously, but we in the community have a job to do as well to make sure that this is done well, whether it's through the official plan review, whether it's through secondary plans, whether it's through the advocacy on particular developer proposals, but also to educate the industry about the importance of really embracing the complete community philosophy. And, so anyway, that's, sorry, Jillian, that I've sort of cast this huge shadow over your question, but it's really important that we do this well. And I just didn't know if you had any thoughts for us about how we as an organization, how the development industry can make this possible in a way that, financially works for the development industry, but also creates the kind of next generation of Scarborough that we're proud to call home.
I think that, Jillian's question and what you're talking about is really, part of the same thing. It's how do we do it better? How do we do it better than we've done in the past? Because we have not, done a great job. The development industry typically looks at how do we do it the most simple way, build condominiums, go to the next site, build condominiums, go to the next site, and not think about building community. That's what is so important and exciting about Golden Mile. And when I say Golden Mile, I mean the greater Golden Mile, because it is one very, very large development zone under a secondary plan. And there are many developers along that route of the crosstown that are very large developers with very deep pockets who potentially are poised to think a little bit differently. So Jillian, in answer to your question, how do we influence that? I think that's part of what you're asking. Can we influence that? And I believe the answer is yes. And I think everyone at this table today, this virtual table, can help to influence that. What we're going to be doing, what we are doing already, is working with the United Way and all of the leaders on that corporate table, but also the multi-sector table, to influence the developers of the Golden Mile to think differently. So I think that's a really important part of it. So we have been meeting with 2 or 3 of the developers. Others on the corporate leadership and multi-sector table are meeting with developers to say, stop the music. We have to think about, as Larry just said, complete community. We have to think about opportunities, for light manufacturing, for business development, for creation of not just jobs, but career paths. So I think there is an opportunity to influence. And I think SCRO itself has an opportunity to call each one of the big developers that are active right now within this secondary plan and say, hey, let's talk. Let's talk about your plans. Let's talk about what you're thinking about with respect to mixed use and mixed income. Because a complete community is not just about a unidimensional approach to development. Complete community is not about, one and done, in and out. It's about a long-term commitment to a neighborhood. And I think that more and more of these big companies who are the developers along Eglinton are beginning to think about impact. I mean, Dream is one of them. They're part of the development community in Golden Mile. They've just launched something they call the Dream Impact Fund. RioCan is beginning to think very progressively about how do they build community. Smart Centers, who have a big piece of land there, I mean, it's a dialogue that we all need to have with that company and with other companies about how to think differently that will actually long-term enhance your bottom line. Because it builds health, it builds resilience, it builds opportunity to build value over time. It's not about one and done, in and out. It's about long-term relationships with a community. I think today corporations, across our country and beyond are thinking about more than simply the single bottom line. I mean, people for years have talked about multiple bottom lines. I think some of the big corporations today are finally beginning to realize that that makes sense for them, that it actually will deliver to them, better long-term outcomes. So I think we all have a role to play. Heela and I will continue to knock on doors of the other developers and say, hey, let's work together on a comprehensive workforce development strategy. Let's work together on social procurement and make sure the money that you spend in this neighborhood has significant local impact. So that's what we're going to continue to do. We kind of do this every day of our lives. And the more people that begin to do this with us, beside us, and get ahead of us, in fact, that's exciting time. So Jillian, thank you for suggesting that, and happy to talk with you more and with others about how we continue to do this. But as an organization, SCRO, knock on doors of some of these developers. Larry, you're right. There are other communities that are about to go through this, and those communities need to be mobilized.
Yes, I agree.
So, totally appreciate what you're saying about the future of Scarborough. It's right now, and it's harnessing this awareness that you and Dave and others are thinking and talking about in terms of we have to do this better, and we know how. We just have to mobilize so that we can make sure we get the outcomes that we want and that this community deserves.
I have a much quicker follow-up. But first of all, thanks for mentioning the importance of a wide range of employment opportunities and opportunities for business formation, because that too is a really important part of a complete community. Another part of a complete community is a wide range of housing choices, including affordable housing, which is a really tough nut, obviously, in the current environment in the city when there's only so much government funding available. What can the private sector do to enable housing choices at the sort of low end of market, if you will, so that as Scarborough evolves over the next 20, 30 years, which will include gentrification, which is bound to increase property values even more, at the same time enables our residents who need affordable housing to be able to live here.
Well, the affordable housing challenge is immense in our city, across the city, in Scarborough for sure, but everywhere in the city. The waiting list for affordable housing is close to 100,000, if not 100,000 people. So we have to do it, and we have to do it collectively, but it ain't easy. There has to be a recognition that creating affordable housing has to be done by virtue of partnership. It's the only way. I mean, right now, the City of Toronto is looking at taking all of the responsibility for affordable housing and putting it onto the developer to say, developer, we're going to impose an inclusionary zoning bylaw, and totally the responsibility for affordable housing is yours. It's just not going to work. I mean, we have been involved. I've personally been involved in developing affordable housing for a long time. Let's say 1973 was the first nonprofit community I was involved in developing, a nonprofit co-op in Montreal. And as a company, we've developed more affordable housing than any other company in the country. So we push and we struggle and we try to create new pathways and new avenues, but the only way is through partnership. Now, the really great thing and the great opportunity that we have in front of us today is that the federal government has, in fact, in the last couple of years, really recognized that it's time to bring back a national housing policy and a national housing strategy, and to support that with money. And they've done that with $55 billion, billion dollars over 12 years, 10 years, sorry. The problem is, and I was in a conversation today with the president, the new president of CMHC, the problem is the programs that they have created to implement the spending of that money don't work. It's like plain and simple. They just don't work. So we have been pushing to demonstrate programs that do work. We've done that recently in Regent Park in partnership with Wood Green Community Services, one of the really active groups in Golden Mile. And we intend to do this in Golden Mile with Wood Green. But who's in the way? The City of Toronto. Seriously. The City of Toronto is in the way of doing it in the way that we think and Wood Green thinks is the right way to do it. What we've just done in Regent Park is we've created affordable housing with Wood Green. And it gets technical here, but at 80% of CMHC's average rent. So well below market. In fact, it's about 50% of, if I was going to build a brand new rental building and charge market, 80% of CMHC's average is about 50% of that. Sounds weird, but it is. Really, truly affordable rents we're able to create in partnership with Wood Green and Regent Park. And we're doing it for 40 years at this deeply affordable level. We come to Golden Mile. We've been in the struggle with the city for a long time, and it's just not easy because the city wants more units to be declared affordable, but they want it for a shorter period of time, 15 years of affordability, and at 100% of CMHC's average. For us, this makes no sense. We need to create affordable housing in perpetuity. We need to do it in partnership with the federal government. We need to do it in partnership. We wish, Mitzi, you were able to, at the provincial level, do it in partnership with the provincial government. We want to do it in partnership with the City of Toronto. City of Toronto should just say, we're going to waive property taxes and development charges on affordable housing that gets built that's integrated within these communities. But they don't say that. Every single step is pulling teeth. So no easy answer other than we have to do it in partnership. The federal government has money to create affordable housing, and we're going to push them to do it in ways that actually work, that the private sector can embrace and say, that makes sense. We can do that. It's a partnership. It's not all on our shoulders. It's a shared responsibility. Affordable housing is a shared responsibility. It's a community responsibility. And together we can do it. And we know how. We know the pathways to do it. We just need to have everybody feel that they're there and have a responsibility to be at the table.
On that note, I am mindful of the time. Thank you for such a complete answer, Mitch, on I know what is a difficult topic. Thank you all for coming tonight. Thank you, Mitch. Thank you, Heela, for a really comprehensive presentation and being willing to tackle a wide range of questions and answer them so thoroughly and so thoughtfully. And we look forward to, as you can tell from all the conversation in the chat box, we look forward to engaging with both of you more. We feel very invested in the redevelopment of the Golden Mile. We want to see it done well and make sure that it includes all these services that we talked about tonight. So thank you for participating tonight. Almost time to close. So I just wanted to provide our usual sort of end of our Scarborough reminders. First of all, a reminder to for those who have not yet done so, to become members of SCRO, which you can do by visiting our webpage at scro.ca. There's no membership fee this year. It's more important that we build an engaged constituency of members, and we really do invite you, if you have not become a member of SCRO yet this year, to visit our website and please do so that you can be more fully invested in what we're doing. Our next Our Scarborough presentation, and I believe that Gerard is just putting it up on the screen right now. Lee Soda, who many of you know, who is the Executive Director of the Agincourt Community Services Association, on June 24th will be our spotlight speaker. And our highlight speaker that night will be the Scarborough Walk of Fame, which is now being managed and operated by the Scarborough Community Renewal Organization. So we'll have a short talk about the Scarborough Walk of Fame on June 24th, as well as SCRO is already busy on a relaunch of that very exciting and high prestige Scarborough program. So please share the upcoming event with your colleagues and your friends, and we look forward to seeing you on June 24th. And I think with that, we are at 8:01, and I will thank you all for coming tonight.
Thank you so much, everyone.
Yeah, thank you for welcoming
Thank you,
us.
Bert.
Appreciate
Thank
it.
you
Bye
all.
bye.
Bye.
Take good care. Bye-bye.
Bye bye, everybody.